There was a 2014 study that showed that Fortune 500 companies were more likely to pick a female CEO if the company was struggling, basically setting women up for the big job, but to also fail. If they did well, fine. But if they failed, like, look, we have a female CEO while failing. And that's what I feel like they did to Kamala Harris. When Biden refused to step aside and not run again, he was supposed to be that bridge. He backed off on that promise due to arrogance. And then he drops out after a catastrophic debate performance, and they set Kamala Harris up to fail.
Y'all remember this one? Sarah Isker, that fiery liberal commentator, actually tried to pin Kamala Harris's massive failure on the DNC. Seriously? Nobody was shocked, though. Because let's be honest, Kamala's campaign collapsed all on its own. And now, the so-called woke crowd wants to blame everyone except Harris for her miserable showing both before and during the race. But here's the kicker. Bill Maher wasn't having it. He shredded that excuse on the spot.
You're saying 3 months wasn't long enough?
It was too long. It was long enough.
It was long enough.
No.
If they had a primary,
It's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and didn't like them.
if they had had a primary, they wouldn't have picked her. And if they had,
That's
she would have been able to rough out those edges that then she basically has to start from scratch with a campaign team she didn't hire that didn't like her, right? It was his team. And so I wonder if that next Democratic person, maybe someone's not even on our radar yet. Because frankly, when you look at the history of who's there's two types. The one who waited in line, who was next in line, and then there's the one who comes out. That's Obama. That's Clinton. That's Reagan to some extent.
This is a pattern with the far left. They never admit failure. So here comes Isker, reaching for anything she can to explain away Harris's downfall. The truth is, months after the election, Kamala still hadn't shown any real growth. But before we get into the latest clip, let's rewind to 2021 and look at one big reason voters turn away from her.
Folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border, do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border. There are legal methods by which migration can and should occur. But we, as one of our priorities, will discourage illegal migration. And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back.
The American people gave Harris one job: secure the border. With communities under strain and resources stretched thin, she delivered one of the most tone-deaf lines ever. Not even from U.S. soil, but from a foreign country. Do not come. Do not come. That wasn't leadership. It was surrender dressed up as a soundbite. Instead of stepping up and enforcing the law, she brushed off a crisis that was hurting everyday Americans. And voters noticed, but it didn't end there. Harris also insisted we stop using the term illegal alien, as if changing words mattered more than protecting citizens. Meanwhile, waves of illegal immigration were overwhelming cities, draining resources and putting vulnerable children at risk. That wasn't courage, it was denial.
Not long after Kamala Harris was installed as the Democrats' presidential candidate, for the media to start rewriting her history. Apparently, she was never the border czar. She never had the most left-wing voting record in the Senate, and she was never considered a liability in the Biden administration. Those verifiable facts are all dismissed as right-wing conspiracies, as is the fact that she helped raise bail money for thugs during the BLM riots. Her tweet is still up. Chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota.
So much for Sarah Isker's weak defense. Kamala Harris wasn't set up to fail. She created her own downfall by running headfirst into every trendy woke cause she could find. Instead of dealing with the job she was given, like managing the border crisis, she wasted her influence pandering to activists and tossing around buzzwords. Real leadership requires tough decisions. Harris avoided them, and the public saw it clearly.
Trump falsely accuses Harris of donating to Minnesota Freedom Fund, bailing out dangerous criminals. Not only did Kamala do just that, her tweet is still up. Chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. She posted that at the height of the BLM riots, and guess what? that link is still active. You can still donate, and there is Kamala's smiling face on the donation.
And these were the so-called accomplishments Democrats pointed to when they placed Harris at the top of their 2024 ticket. Let's be real, they were anything but impressive. This is the same Kamala Harris who proudly raised money to bail out criminals, including violent offenders guilty of horrific acts against innocent people. Families were grieving, communities were terrified, and she sided with the offenders. She didn't even hide IT to SO when Sarah Isker claims the DNC somehow sabotaged Kamala. It's laughable. Harris didn't need help failing. She did it perfectly well on her own. Her reckless decisions and poor judgment set her up for disaster, and Americans saw it crystal clear.
A group that Vice President Kamala Harris urged followers to support helped free an alleged domestic abuser who is now accused of murder. Minneapolis police say George Howard shot another driver in an act of road rage. He was out on bond posted last month by the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Now, that is the same group Harris got behind last summer. Its organizers now say they are looking for the best way to fulfill the mission.
But let's be honest, Harris's blunders weren't just about her. They reflected the Democratic Party's values as a whole. She wasn't acting alone. She had full support from party leadership every step of the way. This wasn't a rogue VP. It was a left agenda in action. Look at the record. Democrats have a history of siding with lawbreakers. Remember Trump's push to secure the border? When IC Director Tom Homan tried to enforce immigration laws in California, Governor Gavin Newsom practically declared war on him. He wasn't protecting citizens. He was protecting illegal immigrants. That's the playbook. Shield criminals, ignore victims, and undermine the rule of law. Kamala didn't go against her party. She represented it, and the nation saw it.
A message for every single person who looks like me, specifically white women. It's time. This is no longer about politics, and you get to right your wrongs of 2016 when you didn't put a woman in the White House who was overly qualified. Now's your chance.
Thank God I don't look like her, because I think that means I don't have to listen to her. But you white women, well, sorry, but this is apparently a life and death matter. No hyperbole there.
And here's something interesting. White women weren't fooled. They saw right through Harris's act and voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. Why? Because they knew what was at stake. They understood that a vote for Kamala meant putting dangerous criminals back on the streets. Risking their family's safety, they refused to fall for empty promises and fake compassion for lawbreakers. Instead, they chose safety over chaos. They chose a leader who would actually enforce the law, not bend over backward for criminals. Their message was loud and clear. Harris's reckless agenda was a threat to their children's future, and they weren't about to risk it.
Everyone thinks you've been kicking back, drinking margaritas on the beach. But really, you've been hard at work, writing a book, meeting with leaders, thinking about the future of our country. Who said that?
Now, if you're wondering what that awkward clip we just saw was, it was Kamala Harris promoting her new book. That's right. That's strange. Cringeworthy performance was nothing more than a commercial. And no, she wasn't sharing some deep message in a quiet moment. She was just trying to be creative. The result? Pure embarrassment. This is what Democrats call leadership. Cheap stunts, fake theatrics, and empty grabs for attention. If this is her way of connecting with voters, no wonder her campaign tanked. Honestly, America dodged a bullet. Imagine 4 years of that in the Oval Office.
I like these kinds of ear pods that have the thing, because I've served on the Senate Intelligence Committee. I have been in classified briefings, and I'm telling you, like, don't be on the train using your ear pods and thinking somebody can't listen to your conversation. I'm just telling you, that's a little bit more secure.
And then there's her speaking style. One moment she's praising her AirPods. The next she's saying they're not that great. Which is it? Does she even know? And don't forget the infamous cackling. The random, awkward laughs at all the wrong times. That nervous giggle has become her trademark, and not in a flattering way. Picture Kamala leading high-stakes talks with Russia and Ukraine. Instead of steady leadership, the world would get jumbled word salads, contradictions, and that grating laugh echoing in the room. It wouldn't just be embarrassing, it would be dangerous. America's credibility would collapse, and our enemies would be laughing harder than she does. Thank goodness voters saw this before it was too late.
There's a lot of personal stuff in the book. I mean, poor Dougie.
You blown the lid off of Doug? What's going on?
For example, my birthday's in October. The election's in November. You see where I'm going?
Kamala, believe me when I say I have no idea what you're talking about or where you're going, and frankly, I don't think you do either. I think every sentence for Kamala is a bit of a mystery. She doesn't know exactly where she's going to end up or how she'll get there.
And this is a person Sarah Isker says was set up to fail? Please, Kamala didn't need sabotage. She was a disaster from day one. Every year as vice president was another failure. The border? Biden put her in charge, and she didn't even bother to visit for months. Inflation, crime, foreign policy missteps, you name it. She flunked it instead of solutions. Harris gave us slogans. Instead of showing up, she posed for photos. She didn't just stumble. She collapsed under the weight of her own incompetence. So let's cut through the excuses. Harris wasn't undermined by the DNC. She undermined herself. From siding with criminals to mishandling the border, from empty speeches to cringeworthy laughs, she proved she couldn't lead. And the American people rejected it. Kamala Harris didn't just fail. She became the symbol of her party's failures. Voters saw it, and they made the call. America deserves better, and that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this.